Hello, I'm Heidi Albin, and this is my final assignment for AEP 855 Educational. I chose to do my presentation on educational equality in assessment results. Before I explain my project, I want to direct your attention to the cartoon that is on this front page. This cartoon accurately reflects what my project is about and the issues that I am focusing on. My topic is educational equality and assessment results, as I stated previously. The main question I'm asking in this study is, are standardized assessments, or any assessments used at schools for that matter, are the results reflective of true and overall intelligence, or do they just measure one type of intelligence? The reason this has to do with educational equality is because if standardized tests do not truly reflect intelligence appropriately, then students of one type of intelligence may have an unequal advantage over those students of another type of intelligence. For example, students who are really good at memorizing and have that type of intelligence will do better on tests than will students who have a better intelligence with their hands or spatial relationships. When they do better on the test, they then have better opportunities for college, scholarships, or career opportunities. I chose this topic partly because right now, with the introduction of Common Core state standards, this is a hot topic, talking about, the standardized tests, do they really truly reflect information accurately? The general consensus is no, and so they're trying to instigate Common Core state standards that will do that better. Another reason I chose this topic is because I work at an alternative high school. At my alternative high school, I have a lot of very intelligent students, but they frequently fail tests or standardized tests or just school tests because they're terrible at testing. That's not their type of intelligence. I feel that my students are at a disadvantage because they not only learn differently, but because they learn differently, their results of their ability are reflected differently. I can sit down and take a test and ace a test because my intelligence type is such that I can remember things. Well, I have students who can look at a car engine and that can fix it, where I would have no idea, not the problem-solving skills, never be able to figure it out. And their intelligence is rated as lower than mine simply because the way that we are assessed is whether we can remember things and then put them on the test. My student who can fix a car has a much higher intelligence than I do as far as spatial abilities and problem-solving abilities, but as far as education is concerned, I have the better grades, I'm the better student, and therefore I'm more intelligent. And that's just not fair. Another reason why I chose this is an example of that. I recently had to take a test for accreditation in Earth and Space Science. The math teacher at our school also had to take a test for accreditation in high school math. Our math teacher is amazing. She's a wonderful teacher and she understands math very, very well. But she doesn't take tests very well. She could not pass the test and was several times she tried, and until she passed the test, she was classified as underqualified. However, she was incredibly qualified to teach our students. I, on the other hand, had to take the accreditation test for earth science. To be completely honest, I know very little about earth science. I do not think I am actually very qualified to teach it because I just don't know much about it. However, I'm a really good test taker. I went and I passed the test, and therefore I am highly qualified to teach that. And so that's just an example of how messed up these results can be, whereas results can show that I'm highly qualified to teach something that I'm not actually very qualified to teach, while my coworker is not highly qualified to teach something when she really actually is. Just an example of how test results can be misleading and therefore favor one type of intelligence over another. As I go over the research I found, there are some central themes that you'll see throughout it. First of all, we see that there are documented accounts of exam results that do not show proper measurement of achievement. We know that current standardized assessments do not adequately address student diversity and diversity of intelligent types. Any caring teacher would agree that exam for common standards needs to be measured more broadly than just multiple choice standardized tests. New instructional and assessment methods need to be developed to incorporate different types of intelligence. But the problem with this is that there's no perfect answer. And you will see this in my research. The first article I found was one about seniors who got to pass their test, seniors who got to graduate even though they failed the test. This is a social justice issue because there's obviously double standards here. There's been students who have not passed the test and then have not been allowed to graduate, whereas these students who didn't pass the test were allowed to graduate. I found many other documented cases similar to this, and this is just an example of how exam results can be a very improper measurement of achievement. The next article I found basically confirmed my views that standardized assessment results are not a very good measurement of educational achievement. I appreciated a quote from this article that says, "Educators have a duty to try to make educational assessment more appropriate to the qualities of the students being assessed." I appreciated this article because it just confirmed all the things that I already knew from experience, but it didn't really give any answers. This next article didn't give answers either, but it did further specify what should not be done. It said that common standards shouldn't be measured by multiple choice tests because that only tests one type of intelligence. It made the point that testing students with multiple choice tests is really just us being lazy. It's going to be more difficult to test students in a way that accurately reflects their abilities, but it will at least be accurate. The author of this article didn't argue that we shouldn't have standards, didn't argue that we shouldn't have some common standards in order to determine when students can pass, but the author argued that it needs to be measured much more accurately. After I found research that confirmed what I had previously believed based on experience, I decided to try to find out if there was actually an answer. While there were many articles talking about the problems, there were very few that actually suggested a solution. One article I did find that suggested a solution was one talking about what is called the G factor. I apologize that due to the time limit I have to rush through this, but I would strongly encourage you to read this article because it's incredibly interesting. But it basically says that the G factor is a very accurate measurement of overall intelligence. And because of the social justice issue that it's necessary to find different ways to form assessments that will adequately produce results that reflect true intelligence, we need to find new methods to teach and to assess this intelligence. Using the G factor is one example of how new methods are being used to accurately assess students. I was interested in the G factor, so I decided to do more research about it. But what I found is that although the G factor is a very accurate measure of intelligence, it isn't necessarily the answer. It's too broad to be accurately measured, and since it can't be accurately measured, then it can't produce accurate results to accurately measure student intelligence. So we see that even results from very reliable methods that have a lot of background research to them, they can still be misleading. And the unfortunate thing about that is it shows me that there's, at least at this time, there is no perfect answer. Through all the research I did, I could not find an answer to this. This is another article that I would strongly encourage you to read because it's very interesting and it really makes you think about equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome, but I don't have time to get into that with this time limit. So again, I apologize that I have to rush through this. So this problem presents a lot of challenges to leadership. First of all, how does a leader decide what to do when exam results do not accurately reflect ability? Were the New York State officials, the decision they made to let those students go ahead and graduate, was that right or wrong? Some people would definitely say it's right because it didn't accurately measure the results, but others might say it's wrong because that's the standard, that's what they have to pass in order to graduate, so you can't let them graduate if they don't pass. So how does a leader know what to do, and then how does a leader deal with different ideas, and some people being for the decision and other people being against the decision? The other challenge is how do leaders deal with required assessments? I imagine most principals would do away with standardized tests if they could, but they don't have a choice. It's mandated by the government. So if the tests aren't reflecting the great teaching that's going on in the school because the students aren't learning dumb little facts to reproduce on a test, do you dumb down the teaching just so you can cram in all the indicators? How do you deal with that? And also, how do you change which exams are used and how ability is measured, especially if there's not necessarily a right answer? I introduced the central themes, and those are the things that need to be addressed. I don't have time to go over them again, but I hope that you can see how those are the things that are prevalent in this research I found. Here are my references. I hope you have time to look at some of them, especially the ones about the G factor. Sorry it was so rushed. Thank you for listening.